You're listening to the Life Friendly Business Podcast. I'm your host, Erin Thomas Wong, business mentor, author, and founder of the Cocoon VIP membership, empowering women around the world to build businesses on their terms. If you want to grow and scale a business that works in harmony with your family and your life, this podcast is for you. When we talk about getting visible and reaching new audiences, PR is something that often comes to mind. And that's why I wanted to invite on Jo Swan from Chocolate PR, who is a PR coach for mission-led entrepreneurs. And I wanted to talk to her about how we can be using PR, what are her top tips, and what are the mistakes that we need to avoid. We had a great conversation talking about overcoming imposter syndrome, how important it is to stand proud and celebrate ourselves, and why local press is a really great way to get started. Hi, Jo. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to hear, first of all, why you set up your business in the first place and what it is that you do to help people.
Yes, of course. Let's dive straight in. So, well, there's a couple of different elements to my business, actually. So I actually started the business nearly 20 years ago when I was in my 20s. And I started the business because I'd been working in an agency that it's the same story as when most people, quit corporate and kind of start on their own. I was disillusioned and I was unhappy with the way things were being done. And I thought that I could do a better way. I thought that there was a different way. So I started my business literally out of a bit of a rebellion in my 20s, kind of going, no, I don't think so. I think I can do it differently. And I started very much still working with corporates that I've been working with in the agency that I was working for. So what my business looked like, nearly 20 years ago is very different to what it looks like now. So back then I was trying to get creative with corporates. So I was trying to give corporates a more creative way of doing PR and a way that tried to actually bring out more of the human side and the human element of the people behind the businesses rather than them just trying to flog their products and services all the time. So that was kind of my original goal. But then over the past few years, or past 5 years, I've done a massive pivot in terms of actually who I help. So I still do PR and we still use, a lot of the same techniques and strategies, but actually who I help is really important to me. So I got to a point where I was feeling like actually my skills were being used in a way that was, I don't know how we say this, but in a way that was maybe a little manipulative, in that, with the big businesses, they are really, really trying to create a certain reputation and they're really trying to mold a certain opinion. And it's not always, let's be honest, the reality of actually how they run their businesses. And I think after a long time of doing that, you kind of feel like, why am I the one that's giving you the license to sort of show up looking amazing and like, you've got all these amazing values and actually at the end of the day, you're not walking the walk. So that started to just not fit very well with me. And so I was looking for other options, other opportunities of how I could use my skills. And I kind of stumbled into the world of female entrepreneurship and I got invited to go and speak at a local networking event. And I met all of these incredible, incredible women who had quit the corporate world and who had started their own businesses. And what struck me by them was how passionate they were about their businesses, but also how small they were playing, because they were stuck kind of in this mindset of, oh, it's just a little side hustle, or it's a little kitchen table business, or it's, I've kind of had my career in corporate and I'm just doing this now because I've kind of had enough of that. And I was like, oh my God, no, this is not the way. Like, you guys have got something incredible here and I need to help you leverage this and get this out to the world. So for the past few years, my focus has been on helping entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs particularly, or people from marginalized communities actually have a bigger and louder voice through the power of the press.
I love that. And I totally agree. I think that there are so many women out there who've started businesses. They're, heart-led businesses. They're doing this because they want to help people and they can help people. But yet, they're holding themselves back because of confidence and imposter syndrome. And I totally agree. We need to help rise up and push everyone forward together.
Absolutely. Because these these businesses are so much more powerful than a traditional business because they are heart-led and they're mission powered and they're passion fueled. They're businesses that are being created from an absolute need. Usually someone has been through something and they don't want someone else to suffer that, or their experience is something that they want to share and help other people learn from. So these businesses are actually the really important businesses, I think, that need a bigger voice. But so often, when we're driven to help people, we don't necessarily think that deserves airtime. We're just doing our business because we want to help people. But actually, to achieve that, we have to step up and we have to be seen to enable ourselves to actually, fulfill that mission. It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? And a lot of people get really stuck with that.
And how do you suggest that people get over those feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome when it comes to the idea of they know that they need more people to know about what they do in order to make their business viable and successful, but yet they've got all those feelings that so many of us have, that other people are doing it better than them. How do you overcome that?
It's huge. And it took me a long time, actually. So I am a massive sufferer of imposter syndrome. It really, really slowed me down for quite a few years when I entered this online space. And I did get a coach. I did physically attack it head on. And, a lot of it does come down to self-worth. It comes down to, maybe things that have happened in your past that you need to really understand why you feel this about yourself. So there's definitely a bit of personal development unpicking to be done. But ultimately, it's about not putting yourself at the forefront. So it's about not putting yourself as the focus of this business, because it's not about us. It's not about the person that is at the helm. It's about the people that we're here to help. And if we're running these businesses that are focused on helping more people, that's what you've got to focus on. And that's what really helped me. So actually, what got me through my visibility fears and my imposter syndrome was pure frustration of, oh my God, I've got this amazing knowledge. I know that these people need help. So many people need help out there to get their message out there. They're not doing it. They don't understand it. If I'm hiding because I don't really like being seen online, or I'm not really a fan of having my picture taken, or I don't like doing lives, how are these people going to be helped? They're not. So it was more from a pure frustration of the situation. I knew I could help. And actually, why was I not stepping up to be that person? That's what kind of got me through a lot of my imposter syndrome, when I flipped it and I was like, right, okay, so me being visible is about actually me empowering and cheerleading and championing more and more people. It's not about me going, oh, look at me, I'm amazing. It's not about that at all. It's much more about empowering and inspiring and motivating. And I think when you sort of try and get your head around that and just think about you're doing it for a purpose, it's actually kind of your responsibility, to be honest, to share that knowledge and to be out there and to be seen so that people can find you. The more you see it like that, the easier it gets.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, it is, we talk about motivation and really honing into what motivates you. And I think one of the biggest things is recognizing that if you don't do this, if you don't push yourself to get visible, your business is not going to fulfill its true potential. You're not going to have that positive impact on people that you want to have. And, and that feeling, it's feeling that feeling is worse than the fear that you might feel of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And trust me, the feeling of sat there years later going, why the hell did I not do this years ago, is worse than you just getting on with it. And I think a few of the ways that I did it, I pushed myself into situations, really quite big situations. So I'm one of those people that you fly or fall or fly kind of thing, and I need to be in a risk situation where I've absolutely got to fly. So I got into networking groups. I was doing training in mastermind calls, but for the people of Boss Babe and Nick Pigeon and real high level entrepreneurs in this space. And when you're performing for them, you can't mess it up. So they need to trust you, and they do trust you. So you've got to show up as that person. So one of the things that I did when I started to get my head around all of this was I got some professional branding done, which made me feel so much better, so much more powerful when I had professional images, because I could sort of show up as that person, not necessarily the person sat at home on my lap on my sofa. I could show up as that person that was looking amazing in these pictures, like strutting around, in these brand shots. So having like a different almost persona of yourself helps as well, I think, in a different way. You've just got to find what works for you.
We have an episode on this visibility series about branding, and Jill was saying exactly the same about how important it is to have these professional brand images. And I know that, a lot of small business owners are working to a shoestring budget, but I really also believe that having some really good photos, some brand images are just crucial, especially when you're going to be going out trying to get PR.
Yeah, well, it makes, do you know what? Fundamentally, I think it makes you feel different. So it helps you step up because you feel like that person, who's looking their absolute best, like hair and makeup done professionally, professional photographer, gorgeous lighting, like you look kick-ass. So you've got to step into that person. And it's so much easier, when you've got those sort of assets. And yes, definitely from a PR perspective, press need good quality photos. So again, you are elevating yourself and you're making your opportunities much more likely by being press ready, by having good brand pictures as well. So it is really important from lots of elements.
So for someone who is just starting to think, do you know what, I think maybe PR is something that I want to focus on. If they are at a stage where they can't really invest in having someone do PR for them, what can they do?
Okay, so the absolute first starting point is understanding that you are PRable. So when people go, oh yeah, I'm going to do PR, and then they think, right, I'm going to just reach out to a few journalists, or I'll see if I can get myself in my local paper, or I'll see if I can, write this article. You're skipping too many steps. So to do PR properly, you have to really start right back at the beginning and think about, right, who am I? What am I doing? And why do I give a crap about this? Basically, because when you're approaching the media, you can't go in it from a perspective of, hi, this is me and this is my business and please can you tell the world about it? You have to find a way to connect with those journalists from a more human level. So actually the starting point is very much like foundational work to think about, right, what have I got to say here? What do I want to be known for? What is my topic? What is my zone of genius? What is the thing that people will always think about me in connection to? And actually, what parts of my story relate to why I'm doing this? And how much of that am I prepared to share? So if you're thinking about doing PR, you've absolutely got to get to the core of those foundations first before you even start to approach a journalist.
Okay. And so once they've got that in place, what do you recommend? Because I know, it's gone I feel like in my bubble world, it's gone a bit quiet now. But, for years, it was the whole hashtag journo request, go on and, search for opportunities. Like what can people...
Yeah. So you can do that. So using tools like that. So hashtag journo request is something that exists on Twitter. And you absolutely can do that to respond to media inquiries. So this is where journalists are looking for people to quote, people to comment, and, people to be a part of their articles. So that's definitely one arm of PR because it means that you are working to a journalist's agenda, which can sometimes be quicker and easier to get yourself coverage. But you've got to be PR ready first. You've got to know what to give them. You've got to know how to show up. You've got to know what they need. You've got to have the right way of presenting yourself. And obviously doing it that way is very much the journalist's agenda, not yours. So that's one side of it. The other side of PR is where you're more proactive and you're taking your story or your knowledge to them. And that takes a lot more work. It takes a lot more research because you've got to get under the skin of which media are going to be right for you. So what I would recommend if you are starting out is basically starting out with your media research. And do a quick Google of some of the keywords that you want to be known for and just see which media are writing about those topics. Start to make a log of those journalists, start to make a little list of who is in that space writing about those subjects and follow them and start to engage with them wherever you can on social media platforms. Get into their world so that you're in their head in terms of how they're writing stuff, the types of things they're writing, and also you're getting visibility in front of them. Then what you need to do is think about, right, well, what can I bring to the party here? They're writing about mental health. Okay, what's my take on this? What do I want to bring that's different to the conversations they're already having? Right, okay, I've understood what they write about. I've got a vibe from them. I'm connected to them. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to offer them a piece. And then you get proactive about actually what you want to say, what fits your agenda and your angles. And you've targeted a very specific journalist. So it's doing a bit of that. It's doing a bit of really, really doing that research and really getting under the skin of where the opportunities could lie for you, and treat it on a very individual basis rather than a bit of a blanket kind of approach to PR.
Great tips there. I do feel like this is, because I know I speak to so many of my clients who find like marketing and selling just this kind of never ending task, and add PR into the mix.
I know.
Do it yourself. But what are the benefits of doing this? What are the benefits of getting visible through PR?
Oh my God, so many. So for me, one of the first ones and the most powerful ones is actually self-confidence. So it might seem a bit weird that we kind of think, oh, well, people won't do PR because they've got imposter syndrome. People won't do PR because they're not confident enough to show up. But actually, we've shown that when we've managed to get those people in that are early on in their journey, that are a bit scared about being visible, that are nervous that they've, not quite got their message right. When we work with those people and we help them build their story and we help them build, something called a media bio, which is how we present our clients to journalists, it just really embodies how brilliant you are. And, to get yourself press ready, you absolutely have to show up as the best version of yourself, because the journalist is not going to take you seriously if you're pussyfooting around and if you're kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I'm quite good, but, I'm no award winner. And if you're not bigging yourself up, they're not going to take you seriously. So the whole process of actually getting press ready builds your confidence yourself, because you reflect back at what you've achieved and you're like, oh my God, actually, yes, even though my business is so new, I've got 20 years experience doing this, I've got life experience doing that, I've achieved this, I've achieved that. You package all that together and you are kick-ass. So actually, the one of the biggest kind of benefits for me is building that confidence in somebody. And the getting press ready process is amazing for that. But then can you imagine how you feel when you're actually featured in the media? And it's like this third party recognition of a journalist going, I trust you, I believe in you, like, thank you so much for your knowledge. That just gives you another layer of confidence, another layer of, oh my God, yes, I've got this. I can go out, or I can do this again, or I can go and speak on that stage, or people just take more opportunities, which I just love. And obviously it opens doors for those opportunities to come as well. So, people will be featured in the media. And then we've had clients to be asked to enter for awards. We've had clients who have been given paid speaking gigs because they've become an expert in that field and it's recognized that they're an expert in that field. We've had clients who have got collaborations. We've had a client who's just written a white paper with a professor on the back of doing an article. And she was like, oh my God, I never would have known how to go about that, but it was always a dream of mine. So some really cool stuff can happen. And it's not always about the sales. Yes, that can also come, especially if you're in a niche. If you've got a real niche audience, we find that sharing your story and your expertise really draws in those ideal clients who have been waiting to find you. So sometimes the sales do come directly, but also you've just got to taken in the bigger picture in terms of how it can just open bigger doors. And it's a massive ripple effect that once you start to do a bit of PR, magic happens, like amazing things start to happen.
I love that you've shared that, because I know that's, one challenge that I find comes up, and especially with the visibility mastermind, is like, the actual outcomes. How do you know if this stuff is actually working? But like you say, it's not necessarily a direct correlation between having a piece of press and getting loads of sales. It's actually all the other stuff. And it's the long game, isn't it, that you're playing?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you are creating when you're doing PR is you're creating this persona of yourself as this expert in your space, as this leader of a certain field. And all of the PR that you get is creating a digital footprint of you being an expert in that space. So that's how other people can find you, whether that's ideal clients or whether that's other journalists. Quite often we've had clients featured in a piece, and actually the journalist doing research on that subject has found our client because they've already been featured in another article. And so then they come to us and say, oh, I'd love to feature so-and-so. And it's a ripple effect. And, when people are searching and they're doing their due diligence, when they're thinking about working with someone, of course they Google you. So if they Google you and you've got like 10 links to different articles in different publications, sharing your expertise, sharing your knowledge, they get to know, like, and trust you before they've even picked up the phone, or before you've even, before they've even visited your website. And that is so powerful in terms of, the sales process, in terms of building people into your funnel. It's so, so powerful to just have this stuff out there across the internet to really show that this is you and you're walking your walk.
Yeah. And I think, like for me, one great experience I had was sending a press release to the BBC, like not really, just kind of thinking, do you know what, I'm just going to send it saying that I'm doing this 1-day event for women in business. I didn't really expect anything necessarily to come from, like, I didn't expect them to necessarily attend the event or anything, but sent out this press release. And then 8 months later, I think it was, had a phone call from BBC Radio 4 Women's Hour, inviting me on to talk about the term mumpreneur. And when I said to them, how did they hear about me? They had this press release on file.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the BBC is a brilliant one to start with for that exact reason, actually. So even if you started with your local BBC, you get put into a national database. And so, yeah, exactly that. When they've got someone that they need on a certain subject area or topic, they just search and they go, oh, who's a female entrepreneur, or who talks about mindset, or who talks about mental health, or whatever it is. And then there you are. And because you've proactively introduced yourself to them, they assume that you're press ready. So, then they're like, right, okay, let's go. So yeah, that's a really brilliant, that was a really smart move.
Thank you. And like you said, I definitely have found that since doing that then I've had local press, BBC and stuff, contact me to be on the radio. And I think, like you say, it's because they know that you're already on the database. You're kind of already trusted as someone that's the BBC have used before.
Exactly. Yeah, it is absolutely a massive ripple effect, without a doubt. And we see it happen with print as well. So, if you can get yourself in your local newspaper, and local newspapers, it's kind of their job to celebrate and support local people. So if you find the right way in and you manage to get yourself in the local paper, that's also a really good place to start, because national journalists track regional media. So quite often we've had a regional story, and then a journalist phone and go, oh, I saw this piece in the whatever Echo. I'd love to run a piece for this women's magazine, or for, I don't know, one of these national newspapers. So it's all connected. You've just got to start. You've just got to be brave and find the easiest way to start.
Fantastic. So with that in mind, I'd love you to share like the top 3 mistakes that you feel people make and how we can avoid them.
Yes, right. Okay, let's think. So one of the first things that people struggle with is believing that they are PRable at first. Like the major problem to get them off the starting blocks is even thinking that they're PRable. So they might think, oh, I'm too small, I'm too new, my business hasn't been going for very long. And those things will obviously just stop you in your tracks. So one of the things that you need to do is to literally write everything down so that you can see it in front of you. So struggling to be PRable is just because you've not identified all of your elements and you've not looked at yourself from a 360-degree kind of perspective. And when you're trying to be PRable, like I said, it's not about your business. It's about who you are as a person. So you need to think about, do you know what? What has my career taught me? What are my big successes from my corporate life? Because so often we sort of try and brush that under the carpet and go, oh, I've left that. I've walked away from that world. But do you know what? If you've worked for a big company that people recognize, that's PRable. If you have been in a really senior position, that's PRable. If you have achieved some brilliant successes within that company, that is still PRable. It's still a part of you as a person, and it's elevating you and your credibility. So really think about all the bits of you that are PRable. It could be from even your childhood. It could be, elements of your story from you growing up and things that you have achieved. So people want to hear about people. They don't just want to hear about the business bit. So really think about, right, what are the things that I'm going to be prepared to share that makes sense to what I'm doing in my business now. Think about the values that need to come through and actually where they have always been in your business or in your life, and how that connects to your business. So that's the first thing. People make the mistake of thinking they're not PRable because they don't actually do the work to unpick their PRable elements. So I'd say that's the first one.
Fantastic. What's number 2?
Number 2 is then when they get round to approaching the media, doing it from a too salesy approach. So we're sort of taught, aren't we, that in marketing, you've got to be quite direct and, you've got to get your business out there. But from a PR perspective, it's much softer and it's much more subtle. So if you go all guns blazing, go into a journalist going, "Hi, I live in your local area. I would love you to feature me in your paper. This is my business." They're going to be like, "Okay, love you, fine, go off and buy an advert." Like, yes, put your hand in your pocket and I'll promote your business. So if you want to get in with the journalist and you want to use the power of PR, you've got to come at it from a more personal perspective, and you have got to be prepared to be vulnerable. So, they want to connect with people who have got stories, who are going to inspire and motivate. They don't just want all the glossy stuff on top. So you're going to have to be prepared to dig a little bit deep and to sort of show a bit of you to have success there. So don't go salesy, and storytell, don't sell is kind of the second one, I would say.
I love that. Storytell, don't sell. Fantastic. Yeah. Number 3.
Number 3 is that it's, you need to just recognize this is a not one hit. I can't even get my words out. Recognize that it's not a one-hit wonder. So sort of giving up too soon, I suppose, would be the third problem, in that people often have a go at it. They don't get it right because one of those elements isn't quite in sync. And then they don't get any success. No one replies to them. And they just think, well, PR is not for me. I'm not PRable. So that's not true. There's so many reasons why journalists might not pick up a story at a certain time. It probably is just timing. It probably is down to their own deadlines and their own agendas. But, it doesn't mean that if you reapproach them that you're not going to have success. So you've got to stick with it. PR doesn't always happen as quickly as you would like. It doesn't always happen overnight, but it's so worth pursuing. And even when you do have success, so let's say you've managed to nail that interview first time, you're like, "Oh yeah, it's good. I've done my PR. I'm out there in the world." That only lives for so long. Yes, it lives online, but you need consistency, and you need to be constantly in front of people with your message. And so persistence and consistency is super important as well. And our clients that have the most success are clients who are putting content out every single month. Every single month, they've got a reason to be in the media. They've found a way to stay front of mind, to be that expert. And they don't just do it once and sort of then wither back into the background. So yeah, I think consistency and persistence, people lack that quite often and they give up too soon.
I totally agree. And I think, and I know we're trying to juggle all the plates when we're running a business, and especially if we're doing it around family life or looking for other people, looking after other people. But I totally agree that, with our visibility and with our marketing, it just needs to be that consistent approach and keeping ourselves accountable as well. Because if we don't let people know what we do, then we're not going to be helping anyone and we're not going to make any money and the business isn't going to work.
Well, ultimately, exactly. Yeah. It's a nice dream, isn't it? To go, okay, this is what I'm here for. This is who I'm here to help. But if those people aren't finding you and you're not doing the right volumes or you're not attracting the right clients, then unfortunately, it's not going to be sustainable. So yeah, that's the reality.
and you use the word there, volume, and that's totally the point, isn't it? Like, if an average conversion rate is like between 2 and 5%, that's one of the stats that I've heard. Think of how many people you need coming in and finding out about you, to make that work for you financially.
Yeah, and that needs to be an ongoing funnel, doesn't it? You need people coming into your world all the time so that you're not just like, You know, you don't have these peaks and troughs of like, okay, I'm fine, I've done loads of activity this month and we've got loads of clients, and then next month you're like, oh God, crap, now I need to do it all again. It's got to be consistent so that people are constantly coming into your world. Otherwise, it's just too hard.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of these fantastic tips and insights. So how can people find out more about you?
So you can come and hang out with me on Instagram at Joe Chock PR, where we share some of our client successes. We share some coverage wins so that you can see what PR looks like. And I'm also going to be adding a few more tips in there as well, so that people can start to have a think about, you know, what are the basic things that I need to get my head around. But I do also do that in a free Facebook group. So I've got a group called PR You Can Do It. And in there, you know, we do offer free advice, we do trainings, we do challenges, there's all sorts that happens in there. And of course, my podcast. So my podcast is called PR Powerhouse. And there's lots of really practical tips there in terms of getting started from a complete novice to how to get published. So if you listen to the episodes in order from like the first 10 episodes, it's literally step by step of the things you've got to do to get press ready. So that's definitely a great place to start.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. It's been great to speak to you today.
Oh, it's a really brilliant conversation. I could talk to you all day, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you get great results, glowing feedback and fantastic testimonials, but still not enough sales? You've fallen into the best kept secret trap. Visit lifefriendlybusiness.com/visibility to find out how to escape it, so you can grow your audience, amplify your impact, and increase your income.